You're listening to Pointing Pointers, the Point to Point podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Pointing Pointers. I'm Ben Atkins, joined as ever by my wingman, Sam Davies-Thomas. And I'm very pleased to say that this evening we are joined by Alan Hill. How are you, Alan?
Good evening. I'm very well, thank you very much, and that's very kind of you to invite me along.
Well, Alan, it's obviously it's always great to talk to you, but it is slightly selfish. I have to, at this point, confess that the last time we had you on was the most listened to episode so far. So obviously someone wants to hear what you've got to say, unless, of course, it was you listening to it several hundred times.
That could well be the reason, or maybe I've got a large family. I don't know, but I'm very flattered by that. That is the thing I didn't know. So let's see if we can have another go entertaining then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mostly followed by Joe O'Shea's episode as well. So that's also.
Well, I didn't want to, Sam. I wasn't going to admit to him that Joe's was actually slightly more listened to, but I think that's for different reasons altogether. Anyway, so. Let's crack on, as they say. So yeah, just before we get started, as I've said in lots of previous episodes, it's really helpful if you could subscribe wherever you listen. So if you're listening on Spotify, hit the subscribe button, and likewise on YouTube. And yeah, if you ask for notifications to be to pop up when we do a new episode, it's a good way to keep in touch. With us not being weekly, it's easy to forget when there's a new one up. So yeah, press subscribe, and I promise you won't regret it. Thanks again to the PPRA and Redmills for their continued support. We are filming something at the end of this week, which I'm quite excited about with Redmills, looking at more sort of a deep dive into their nutrition. Alan, it's a good point actually. We spoke to Izzy about your involvement with Redmills, but you're still enjoying feeding Redmills products? Shameless plug.
Yeah. No, only too pleased to plug them because we've had great results from them over the years. They're very helpful in every way to us. It's not only just the supplying of the food, it's the behind the scenes. Lornie is, I'll be very, very honest, she is the real controller of the feeding in the yard, in both yards. She really enjoys it. She talks to their team, and like the last few years, they analyse our haylage that we make at home as well. They have a lot of extra add-ons. That not only is the bag delivered off the lorry for us to feed, but the service itself is complete, and they're easy to talk to.
Yeah, I find exactly the same, so that's good. And that was a very good plug for them, whether it was prompted or not. So I'm sure they'll appreciate that. And what else is coming up in the show? We're going to look a bit back at the racing that has happened in the not too distant past, because we don't want to go over old ground. But we're chatting to Alan in depth about a few current issues in the sport and some good things as well. And I look a bit about what is coming up in the next few weeks. Plenty of discussion points beside. And only one more plug to give before we crack on. You may, if you are a podcast aficionado, you may have heard me gibbering on the Nick Look Daily over the last few weeks. We've got a weekly slot, very kindly sponsored by Thoroughbid, talking about all things British pointing. So by the time this goes out, there'll have been another one. So do listen back to Wednesday's episode of Nick Look Daily, available on all good platforms to hear us wanging on. So Sam, let's start with the Walrus at Haydock. What feels like an age ago now, but still fresh in the memory because it was a pretty impressive winner in Spyglass Hill, actually sold on Thoroughbred, trained by Regan Palace. And it's quite an interesting story.
Yeah, it is. It was impressive in the fact he had to really grind it out. He took the last two down the back with him. He's probably got them in his stable down in Wales somewhere. But yeah, he really ground it out. Tom, you like that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
With Tom Broughton on, who's obviously, he's going great guns as well. Tom is riding really well attached with Fergal. Regan, only 23, started out with Peter Byrne when he was 15, worked alongside Christian with Di as well, and then went on to Nicky Henderson's, was there for 5 years, rode the likes of Chantry House. He was a big part of their team, and he's since then joined back with Christian Williams. So that was his first runner The horse is trained at Jack Tudor's parents' farm, just down the road from Christian's. Hasn't seen a gallop since he bought it. As I say, bought it from off Thoroughbred for 15,000.
15 grand, yeah, 15 grand.
Won 8,000 in the war. So yeah, all credit to him. Great training performance. It just shows what you can do in your spare time if you put the effort in. And he goes straight to Aintree now. So yeah, it must be really exciting for him.
Yeah, 100%. And beat Iskandar Pecos, who went in today at Leicester. So that's a bit of a form boost.
Yeah, and that one easily today, didn't it? So yeah, no, big form boost. All credit to Hannah Roach, to be honest, as well. That was 10 days ago. So and he had a very hard race there. So yeah, no, great training performance from Hannah for today.
Back to like defeat was out of the question, as you'd expect from a very shrewd yard, Sam.
Yes.
Now, Horsey on Saturday the 17th. We've had a couple of interesting results.
Yeah, Jenny Owen, Alan can obviously come in on this as well after, but Jenny Owen trained a double. Great to see Radnor Lodbrok back to winning ways after disappointing run there last time. And also Night in Dubai. Great to see old Rupert on the scoreboard again. 2 from 2 this season since going back point to point, and it's great to see, these horses that have lost their way on the rules. It's an option for them to go back point to point and give them a bit of confidence and continue their career in racing. Alan, you were there. Ragnar Lodbrok, did he look back to normal ways?
I think the most important thing was the other day with Ragnar, it seemed to be the ground. When he ran there the time before, it was quicker ground, and he just never seemed happy, and he never jumped. I know he's not the best jumper, and I'm not being rude, I've just been observant. But the other day, he just seemed a different horse going back on that more testing ground. It was unfortunate they couldn't go for the Dick Saunders. I know that Caroline and Gerald very much were keen to go there, but maybe for the horse it was better just to nip back to horse, he can get his confidence back after having that defeat at the previous meeting. I can see him. I think he looks better this season than last season. He's beaten better horses this season, and I can see him going up and racking up a fair few wins now, because being very honest, we're all going to look at him and do we want to take him on? And I thought the other day's performance was, no, really, we don't want to go and take him on if he's going to keep running like that on that ground.
No, when there's more meetings on at the minute, people have probably got to take him on because you've got to run your horses. When the meetings start trotting up, you can have an option of where to go. And, if he's there, you're probably going to go the opposite way, as you say.
And the, wasn't it the whistleblower was in the race and he ran well today? So that at Leicester, didn't he? So that's fragged that form. So no, good performance.
Yeah, no, perfect. And you went up there with a non-successful day, but Paul Manate ran well in behind all ammunition for Dale. Yeah, we were very pleased. He's a 5-year-old. He's a project. He's not a sales horse. Graham Henderson has bought him as a long-term horse to start his career point to point and hopefully go on under rules like he's done with 1 or 2 of his others with us. It was going to be quite a difficult race because I think that David and Dale's horse, he's never been out the first 2, is a tough nut. And then Phil York's horse actually did run a cracker. He's got a bit of handicap chase form and he just kept galloping and jumping. So 5-year-old, we went into an intermediate because there wasn't a restricted at the meeting, a little bit of a jump, but we were beaten 1.5 lengths, 2 lengths. We're not at all disencouraged by that performance. And here running about 5 or 6 weeks' time, I can't remember where it is now. We've got somewhere marked out. But yeah, no, it was a good run from a 5-year-old that we haven't really been hard on him. We are bringing him along as a long-term project. Perfect. And going back to, as you said, no restricted on the day, so you jumped into intermediates. How are you finding the change now? Obviously, it's changed a lot since I was riding, since you've probably started training. There's the grades of races and the way you go with your horses. How are you finding that change?
I'm old enough to remember when we did have 2 wins in restricted, but it was a £7 penalty then. And I felt at that period, and that was 12.7, 13 stone. Now it's 12 stone, 12 stone 5. and it's holding a lot of horses in there. I think these restricteds now have gone from races that we were all looking at 2 or 3 years ago, probably been the weakest race on the card, to being very competitive. You were talking earlier about the horse winning today at Leicester, whose name I pronounce very badly, the Hannah Roach horse. We've met that 3 times this year in restricteds. Cooler Park ran really well against it. We were beaten about a length. We beat it with Urban Grit, and we beat it with Learnt a Lot. So that, you know, in restricteds. So that just shows how competitive they are. I've seen some, I feel, very good restricted horses this season that we're going to be seeing winning hunter chases as the season goes on. I was involved at board level with talking about this because Peter Wright wanted to have a look at it all, and he came up with an idea. We sat down as a board, we discussed it. It was a very long meeting. And I felt that actually Fiona Needham came up with this, come on, why don't we think about going back to this? And it was her idea. And the committee said that, you know, we needed something. I'm a great believer of keep pointer-pointers running against pointer-pointers as long as you can. And I think if you win a maiden, you definitely want 1 or 2 more runs against pointer-pointers. Once you go into conditions, you can come up against an old handicapper, and that can intimidate a nice young horse. You've ridden Sam, you know what it's like. You don't want something galloping along beside you, it just keeps picking up out of its stride when you're on a nice young horse that wants to just be able to not be hassled or hurried. So I feel now, with having 2 restricteds, then an intermediate, that we've got a great chance to go on through to hopefully keep the horses in the sport, and in the long term produce horses that will go and win us, you know, well, hopefully fox hunters, but even stay in the sport longer because they're brought up in an environment against their own and not quickly against these top class handicap chasers that we all see. They hit their mark, they come then point to pointing, because once they hit their mark, you know, they've got another career at that job.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it's the most important time of their career, isn't it? But as we've said plenty of times on here, it's kind of opening the door for all angles, isn't it? And, you know, from working from the bottom, from maidens up to allowing them to come back in, it's getting that happy medium in there, isn't it? To welcome everything and keep the sport kind of fruitful with plenty of horses. Anything else from Horse Heath that you spotted, Alan, while you were up there?
As per usual with Horse Heath, it was competitive racing. I was annoyed that we didn't have a horse to run in the ladies. It was quite a funny race. It was great to see the Turners colours win in February. I spoke to Ed Turner, who was away skiing that day and wasn't there. I spoke to him the next day on the phone and said it was nice to see their colours win in February. And he did actually say that they think it's been if not a first, a very long time since. I felt that as you mentioned earlier on, the horse that impressed me was the Stern horse. He just never seemed to come off the bridle. I was stood down by 2 out, and Rupert was just cantering. It shows his class. I know that they want to be careful of what ground they run him on, but if they can keep him in that form, I thought when he won there last time, I thought, right, yeah, he's going to won a nice little race, maybe fresh, change a yard. The other day, he definitely stepped up even better. They could have a lot of fun with him. That would probably be the horse I'd take out as the most impressive performance of the day.
Yeah, no, the form stacked up from his first run as well, with Bossman Fred going in at Larkhill. As I said before, it's two ex-scouting horses. He'd be banging his head together, wouldn't he? But I'm allowed to say that. Yeah, no, good. Babry Rings then, Ben.
Now, the 4 maidens have piqued a lot of interest, a lot of discussion, Sam, which we won't go into, in great depth here. I think we've covered that plenty. But 4 maidens on the card and some nice winners to come out of it, no doubt. And Well, maybe we will get into it later, perhaps. But yeah, do you want to talk us through the winners, Sam?
Yeah, so Biddick tried to shorten the distance with James King, obviously, but James replied with Biddick had a treble. James then replied with a double. So James keeps his tally well ahead of Biddick at the minute on 26, following another fruitful weekend for James, and Biddick on 17. But yeah, Biddick had a nice win of the maiden, one of the divisions anyway. No drama this end. Won really impressively. And yeah, he heads to the festival sale in March, so I'm really excited for him. It's a horse he talked about on our last episode, and it's good that he could get that right as it swings and roundabouts. The horse he ran at the weekend, that he also liked, but as you say before, they can't all be rockets, can they, Ben? No, it's he actually injured himself and pulled up. He did a muscle in behind, so he pulled up. But that one impressively, and then Biddick actually had another maiden winner on Dorset Diamond, who was actually having its 15 starting point to point. So it just shows, one end of the spectrum to the other. That horse had an opportunity, and its 15th attempt, and it went in. Another furlough one again for Harry Ryle. So Harry's.
Really... I was hoping. Sorry, Sam. I was hoping you were going to fall for your own trap there, which is in the notes you put another furlong. I was really hoping you were going to read that out.
I can't spell, Ben, so it's fine.
Well, luckily you've got a better memory than me. Another furlough for Harry Ryle, yeah.
Yeah, no, one well again. Harry seems to be doing really well. And then, yeah, James obviously had his double. One of them was for Julie Wadland. So Julie's having a good season as well. Glenmount. Alan, were you down there?
No, I must admit, Sunday off, a rather boozy lunch instead.
Perfect. Can't beat it.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Alan? Just briefly going to touch on this now, Ben. Is that allowed?
Yes.
So we obviously had 4 divisions of the maiden at Badbury Rings, which is great. No, I don't think anyone will deny that. We were talking about how to have a bit more of an even playing field about getting, if you have that sort of situation. I know there's, you all know this. There's a rule in the book, I imagine, that when splitting divisions, you wouldn't be able to put 4 and 5-year-olds in one division and have the other older horses in another. Would that be right?
I wouldn't know if that. No, I wouldn't want to answer that. I don't really know. No.
So, Alan, just to give you a bit of context, I was wagering on the episode with Biddick the other day that there is probably a rule that if there's loads of entries in a race, that they get drawn at random to be split. So there's not someone saying, well, we'll stick that one there, stick that one there, and there's no human influence. So I'd imagine it gets stuck into sort of, whether it's raffle tickets or whether it's computer-based, and just split. Now, we were talking and saying, would it be better for the sport if the 4 and 5-year-olds were put together so the horse is carrying the same weight rather than a hot shot for 4-year-old beating an 8-year-old who hasn't won in 22 starts but is coming there to win and gets battered 23 lengths, the last 2 by a sales horse. What's your thoughts on that?
I haven't really given it any thought. I can see your reasoning that yes, you would be putting like against like, but there again, let's look at it the other way. We've got the young horse maidens now that have been set up, which seem to be well supported. So, a difficult one to answer that, really. Yes, they're meant to be randomly drawn unless a jockey's got 2 rides or an owner's got 2 horses or a keeper's got 2 horses. That's the only way that they try and keep them apart. But I think you probably could be making it too complicated. Have we always got to be thinking about the young horse running and beating the old horse for the sales? I would say at the moment, keep it as it is, but that's been totally selfish.
No, I completely agree. We actually, as well as thinking about the 4 and 5-year-olds, actually also think about the older horses, given that, a stone and a half. But as you say, the admin, how often do we split a maiden 4 ways? So it's probably not going to happen again. So
hang on, Sam. Hang on. You just said you totally agree, but I don't think you do totally agree. I think you think 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds should be running against each other. At least that's what I think you believe.
Yeah, I do. But there is, as Alan says, there's 4 and 5-year-old races. So in this context,
what's right?
Okay. Come on, don't.
Fair enough. No, but I think, what you, if I'm allowed to put words in your mouth, Sam, I think what you actually think is it's unfair on the older horse that's trying to get its first win on the board to be getting mullered by a hot shot. Maybe.
Yeah. It's a shame maybe there wasn't a 4 or 5 year old race at this meeting, considering the lack of meetings down in that area.
Yeah, I think.
I thought it was a very brave move for them to divide it 4 ways, but it really paid off because they got great support because everybody knew what they were at, and it was a good idea this weekend. Unfortunately, we lost Kingston Blount. That our young maiden was moved to Larkhill because there were only 6 runners, but they were from good yards, and I do think the winner will probably be very much a good sales horse, because with the 2nd and 3rd yards of being Ellis and Gibbs, I thought that really was a worthwhile effort as well. So I think people are doing things as much as they can to help. And that's why I take my hat off to Badbury Rings, because I would have never have been that brave to have divided it 4 ways. No. But then I did speak to Will Bennett the day before at Horse Heath, and he said it's just made life so easy because he's been able to get organised, knowing what's going on, and I can understand that. But they could have had their egg in the face if suddenly they'd had 4 races with 5 runners. So full marks for their bravery. I really do think that was a good move.
No, it was great. It was great to see. Actually, I can't remember the last time I ever saw. Well, I can't remember when I saw a maiden split 4 ways. To be honest,
it's had us all talking, Sam. So Larkhill on Sunday the 25th. We are getting through the racing, and but interesting that Grace A Vous Enki is either 4 from 4 or went off at even money at 4 to 4. I'm imagining, Sam, that she's 4 from 4, and I believe you caught her with Nicky Sheppard.
Yeah, 4 from Larkhill, Ben. Yeah, sounds. My notes aren't very clear today, are they? But yeah, Grace A Vous Enki continued winning ways, and I had a chat with Nicky Sheppard, who thankfully gave us some time this evening after being at Ascot for a pony racing day. So no, I had a chat with her, and this is what she said.
Delighted to be joined now by Nicky Sheppard on Pointing Pointers. Nicky, thanks for joining me this evening. You've had a busy day kind of to push and promote the younger generation at Pony Racing Day at Ascot, which is great. You've also enjoyed a real fruitful season so far between the flags, no more so than Grace A Vous Enki winning on Sunday. That's his 4th win in 4 starts this season, which is great. Can you tell me a bit more about him, what he's like on a daily basis, and your plans for him going forward?
Hi guys. Grace A Vous Enki is a lovely horse, very easy to do. Anyone can ride him. He's very relaxed at home. He's won very impressively this season for me. His aim is to go for the Lady Dudley at Chasley Corbett, because his owner, Mrs. Joan Hitchins, wife of Clive Hitchins, lives very close to the course. And the idea originally was to run the horse locally, but anywhere locally has been off due to the weather. So we've been to Larkhill 3 times. He seems to love it round there, and him and James King are on the same page about how they should ride the course. And we're very lucky to have him, and he's a class horse to have around.
Yeah, and to win 4 at Larkhill as well is no mean feat either, and he's not been the only winner you've had this season. Talking about James King, obviously he's no better man to have at the minute. He's riding at the top of his game, and he looks to be running away with the men's title. Stan as well, obviously he's come from your yard pointing background, grassroots. You must be extremely proud of what he's getting up to under rules now, having had a good upbringing in the pointing field.
To have James King on Elliot Enki is a privilege, because he's ridden loads and loads of horses, obviously, and Enki has run under rules and fell out of love with the game. So to have James on, he knows when to concole him, when to squeeze him, get the most out of him without bullying him. It's that sort of race riding experience is absolutely essential to this type of horse. Every race, I know that they're going to suss each other out, and James hopefully pushes the right buttons on him because he's got the experience. As for Stan the man, yep, I'm really delighted. He struck up a really good partnership with Tom Lacey. He learned everything through the hunting, pony club, show jumping, pony racing, point-to-point field. One of the lads, that's come the old-fashioned way. Tom Lacey's got a good supply of really young quality horses, which helps, and it's only 30 minutes from here, so he lives in Ledbury, so we're all quite local. It means he can come here and ride out some of the younger naughty horses as well. So very proud of him, and onwards and upwards.
Yeah, I wouldn't let him too far out your sights either, so that's good that he can nip over every now and again. Keep an eye on him. I can't let you go without asking a horse a yard in form, so asking for any horses coming up in the next couple of weeks that our listeners need to keep an eye out for.
Pointing, one horse that we haven't run yet is a horse called Handai. He won quite a few down south last season. Also belongs to Mr. Hitchens. Probably go to the Beaufort. The other good horse is Yippee-Ki-Yay, who's already been out and won.
Great to hear from Nicky there, Sam. And another winner for Max Comley.
Yeah, as we said, Bossman Fred followed up his second behind Night in Dubai. And stayed on well. I think the Ellis horse, from what I understand, was clear at the time, Max said. But, you've got to be jumping's the name of the game. And Max's horse was there. He stays really well. I think he's going to go for, he's got another marathon. Max got another long distance horse on his hands there. So, I think he's going to go some long distance races with him. He's as slow as a hearse by all accounts.
Max? That's not very kind. I think he's quite smart personally.
He won nicely in the end. And as Alan says, Kaika Rock won the 4 and 5 year old race in good style, even with an extra £5 on its back as well. So that also might help the sales pitch, I suppose.
Was Max riding that as well? I watched the video of that. It's funny because they clipped it up and put it on Twitter, and the person filming clearly goes to say "easy" like that, which is something we used to say when we were at school when you'd like thump the opposition team or something. Easy, but Charlie's very diplomatically cut it, so it just goes ease. Anyway, that was good to see. And Carryonaway for Alan Hill, nice 5-year-old, beat 16 runners, well 15 I suppose.
Yeah, very, very pleased. Horse that came over last year. Joe loves the young horses. He never misses a store sale. He's got to know a lot of the boys now on the circuit. The horse came over from Sean Doyle. Big overgrown horse, one run last year at Tabley. Probably 2.5 mile, a little bit tight, got beat about a neck. Matured this year. He was going to run at Kingston Blount. That was the plan. The owners live locally. We put him in then knowing that Kingston was offering at Lark Hill. We had him in the 2.5 mile. And I will say probably, I don't make many correct decisions, but I definitely made a correct decision not to run in that, watching the race. Joe and I walked back up afterwards and said, well, even if we get beat today, we would have never have won that. Said to Izzy, second run. I always feel Lark Hill's quite a hard course for a young horse because you're in so much space. You haven't got many bends. You don't get many breathers. And young horses can see a line of fences. It's quite hard work. So just said to Izzy, ride him the first 2 mile to make sure he enjoys it and doesn't get intimidated, and gradually bring him into the race. Made a mistake 4 out. I feel that probably that could have been a little bit. It was the first time that he was starting to really get into the race. But then he jumped the next 3 well, idled a little bit up the running, but luckily Loose Horse did help us a lot. So, but very, very, very pleasing. Again, he's not a sales horse. He came here. He couldn't go to the sales because he had an issue with his wind, which we sorted out. So we sold him to stay in the yard. And looking at what we saw the other day, I'm very good because Mr. and Mrs. Mudd have been good owners here for a long time, and funny enough, they've always wanted a grey horse, but I'm pleased we've still got him because he could be a bit of fun in the future.
Perfect. And
Brilliant.
looking at kind of race planning now, where would you go with him? How many more, as a 5-year-old, looking at him for the future? How many more runs would you give him this season?
He stands nearly 17 hands now. He's grown well through the summer. I'll be totally gutless, and I will go back to saying what I was saying earlier on. Easter Saturday, we have Kimble, we have a hunt race. Heather, Mrs. Mum, was our hunt secretary for years and has always wanted to have a runner in it. We'll probably go and run in a hunt race, and then that lets us go into the restricted. But I would hope it will be, the ground will be good enough. It probably now go and dry up, but the ground will be good enough. We get another couple of runs into him, because when he came over, like a lot of these horses, he'd done a fair bit in Ireland, so we weren't just getting a completely raw horse. He had seen a fair bit of life, so he's a forward 5-year-old in the respect of not totally in maturity of body, but in mind. And I think he'd handle another couple of runs, and that's what I'd like to do. But as soon as you ever think that with a horse, you can guarantee the weather will go against you. But that would be the plan.
Perfect. And just going back to the hunt race, running the hunt race, excuse my ignorance. So you could run in a hunt race and run in the restricted. If you then won a restricted, could you then run in another restricted?
Yeah, that's it.
Races before you're out of restricted.
I think this is why, and now also you can win a bumper and go in a restricted. This is why probably the restricteds, as we were talking earlier, are getting so hot, because you can win a maiden, like you just said, a hunt race, you can win one restricted, you can win a bumper. Suddenly you could be running in a restricted, having won 4 races. And that's, I think, starting to show why they are being so competitive.
Yeah.
So why would... Sorry, Sam.
So you want competitive races, don't we? We want it to be good and want these horses to have opportunities as well, don't we? So no, it's good to have those options, I think.
Then you got, as we were saying earlier on, slightly going backwards, we've got the intermediate, and I think the condition system. And I know people found it a bit difficult to pick up on it to start with, but to me it's dead easy. We've got 1, 2, 3. 1 means you really can only have 1 race in the last year to get penalties. 2, or can't have 1 for a year. 2 for 2 years. 3 for 3 years. And I think that system's working quite well. The Irish have had such an easy system for years, haven't they? Winner of 1, winner of 2, winner of 3. And I feel we're now just getting ourselves into that now a lot better, with the conditions as well being 1, 2, 3. I think it's helping. I do love the novice riders systems, and I do think it's really good that we have these grassroots races and these small yard races as well. It's just giving everyone a chance, and all those things that are coming in. I feel we've got quite a good system at the moment, that you can place your horses. It's good fun looking through the program book, but I think actually also, I think it's as simple to read now as it's probably has been.
Yeah, completely.
So, just to pick up on one thing there that we were going to talk about in talking points, but we're kind of touching on it now, so we may as well. We're
not on luck on Sunday, mate.
Hang on. Well, not yet, Sam. Not yet. Now, listen, we're talking about the loophole, which is being able to enter a horse in a hunt race with fairly spurious connections to the horse. Now, I'll put my hands up. I've done this. Fairly spurious connections to a hunt. Now, I've done this, and I've registered my horse with a hunt, which I've not really had anything to do with, in order to get into their hunt race, because it was a seal opportunity for that horse that was making its debut pointing. This is in the past, by the way, officer. Basically, we all know that it is possible, and Max Comley exploited this to good effect the other week, where he's got a horse that's running at the Cheltenham Foxhunters that he ran in the Broxby Hunt race, and basically had a race course gallop on a left-handed track over stiff fences, over 3 miles. Now, is it fair that you're able to do that? And should this be tightened up to enable hunt races to be how hunt races were, or do we actually need this to be able to happen to avoid a load of walkovers and matches? Because something that we will get onto later, no doubt, the connection between hunts and pointing, well, it's very much still alive. There's perhaps less farmers that are training one round the back of the cattle shed or whatever that have got something to run in the hunt race. And in the case of the bigger yards, unless they're registering them all with the same hunt, which many of them will, it has a bearing. So, what do you think, Alan?
Firstly, my position as representative of the MFHA, we talk a lot about the hunt certificate, and as you well know, there's been lots of changes. Some people think for the better, some people think that maybe we've lost a bit of the old tradition. So now we don't have to qualify. It does open it up. In the old days, if you wanted to go and run in a hunt race, the Blankshire hunt race that was 100 mile away, it was a great effort to take your horse there. Now you can just fill it out. So it has been brought to the table. We have talked about it a lot at the MFHA point-to-point meetings, and we are trying to find a way of not really having a loophole. And at the same time, we're talking about, should a hunt be able to issue hunter certificates that doesn't have a point-to-point? And I think we've now come up with a solution of that. That's
interesting.
Because they're not supporting the sport by not having a point-to-point. Don't take me wrong. Please don't feel that every hunt's got to have a point-to-point. Some hunts either can't afford it or may not be able to have the facilities to do it. But I can't say, I'll probably make myself unpopular, I can't say I fully back what Max did the other day. I didn't think that was personally, I didn't think that was great what he did. The loophole was there. He's done it. We try to think of, should you only be able to have a hunter certificate from a hunt within your area? I'm South Midlands. Should it be only all my horses are Kimberwick? But I have one group of owners that are Essex and Suffolk. They like to have the hunt certificates with their own hunt because he's hunt chairman, she's an ex-master. So that's great. But I think we've got to bring in it somehow or other. There's got to be a connection because of that. And I did notice, without saying names, another trainer that suddenly had a hunter certificate in Scotland the other day, which then helped them go into area races. So it's a difficult one, but I feel I love the hunt race because I feel a lot of the crowd that are there see a race with their mates and people in their hunt. And we've still got to remember, point-to-pointing is not only viciously competitive as it is at the moment, but it is for the hunt to entertain their country at the end of the season. And sometimes if you've given car passes away to your landowners, your farmers, your keepers, and they see a hunt race with 3 or 4 people they know, it lets them come along and enjoy the day. And that's why I'm very pro the hunt race, because it is one race that a local person's going to win. And that's how I'd like to feel that we can solve this problem. But it is being talked about, it is on the table, but no total solution has yet come up.
So I'd echo your sentiments there, Alan, but let's take the Brocklesby race on its merits. So one of the horses was owned by Lord Yarborough, which is great, and trained by one of the Hunt Greens, who does a great job. And the other horse, trained by Jack Teal, is owned by John Cottingham, who is a Brocklesby, he owns country in the Brocklesby Hunt country, I believe, and now lives in Yorkshire. And then Max Conley. So if the previous year, and I know this because I was in that race because my horse was registered with a neighbouring pack at the Burton. It was a match race. So 2023 it was a match race. 2024 would have also been a match race with one of the same horses from 2023, which beat my horse. And there's probably multiple examples of that around the country where it will basically just be one of, either a walkover or a match race. And so if you were to tighten up on this, you'd actually end up with a poorer spectacle on the day. And I probably feel on balance that if the loophole is there to be exploited, then people will, and that's kind of sport to a point, even though it's unsporting, that is sport, if that makes any sense. What do you think on that, Sam?
I think maybe this should be looked at the beginning of the season for each hunt race. I know the Pikeshie and Woodland Pikeshie, they've merged as a hunt. They put their hunt race together. Maybe this could be an option for the kind of weaker areas, the smaller areas where they've got lesser horses in their area. So, for example, the hunt race at the Brocklesby merged with the Burton, and surrounding point to points. And
that's what they did, you see. Hence, I was able to do last year, but they still only can muster 2 horses.
But then you just said, was that just one hunt race you have throughout the whole year? Is that the one meet?
So the Burton does have a point to point currently, and so they took entries, I think, from the Southwold, Blankney, Burton, and Brocklesby. The Blankney,
they still only have 3 entries.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's not a silver bullet for this issue, and I think we've kind of explored all the various elements of it, and no doubt the clever people that sit around the same table as Alan will get the job sorted at some point. So that's enough on that one for now.
Just to add to that, yes, I can understand what you say. And, it is an add-on race. After a certain date, we're only allowed so many races on a card now because we are worried about the horse population. So the hunt race is an add-on. We this year at Kimble, because of that, and our hunt race at Kimble normally has about 4, sometimes 5 runners. And we've actually opened it up because the Oakley have dropped their hunt race, and so have the Berks and Bucks draghounds. So we've got 3 hunts, like you were just saying, because we want to try and make it a 7 or 8 runner race as well, and we feel that they're local people. So you're right in what you're saying. It should be looked at, and maybe, 1 or 2 hunts getting together is a good idea. At least it keeps it local. I personally, I'm very old-fashioned. I'm probably a fossil, as you younger people would say, but we still got to try and have that local bit about it, haven't we?
Of course you have, yeah.
We all jump in lorries and go miles. The other day I drove to Higham Horse Heath. I called that a local journey. And Larkhill on Sunday, a local journey. We're all having to travel a fair bit. We all have better lorries. We have faster lorries. And as certainly Max, who at the moment must have worn his lorry out, he is really travelling. So, it is nice to have a bit of the local feeling to it.
It's so important to keep that, isn't it? So we need to kind of get and try and keep that. I completely agree.
Yeah.
As we said, without the qualifying now, it's hard to keep that, in their areas. So yeah, it's exciting. It's good that you're looking into it, and I'm sure you'll come to some good result.
Hopefully.
So that concludes our whistle-stop tour of the previous racing. But just to quickly touch on that,
in there, Ben, please. Grassroots riders. We're going back to grassroots riders. I actually had a chat with Jemma Sargent, who won the ladies' conditions race. For grassroots riders, ridden by Megan Bevan, Lair Duvant at Larkhill. So I had a chat with Jemma, and she trains. She's working for Joe Tizard, and she trains the horse in her own time. And this is what she said.
I'm joined now on Pointing Pointers by Jemma Sargent, who trained her first winner at the weekend with Lair Duvant. Excuse my French accent; it's awful. To win the ladies' conditions race for grassroots riders, ridden by Megan Bevan. Jemma, can you tell me a bit more about yourself firstly? Your day job, I understand you're down at Colin Tizard's, and how you managed to get time to train your horses?
Yeah, I've been working for Joe and Colin for getting on. I think this will be my 10th season with them. I started there at quite a young age, and I've always had like a background of pointing and stuff with my cousins doing it. My uncle used to be a jockey. So yeah, it definitely runs in the family with horse racing. And then I managed to do my point-to-pointer through lunch hour. Joe is kind enough to give us his satellite yard, a couple of us for point-to-pointers, and he's very kind of us to let us use all of his facilities throughout the lunch hour. And then at weekends I'd hack him back home and give him a freshen up through all the fields.
That's great, and it's a great opportunity that Joe can give you to be able to use all the facilities, and you've made full use of it as well. Laird Duvant, obviously, he was a classy horse under rules. It's nice to have him to have another opportunity, and it must have been give you a great thrill to train your first winner. For someone starting out in the sport, wanting to train, like you do, how was your day at Lark Hill, and what's that sort of feeling and rewarding feeling you get when actually your first winner comes in?
Oh, it was an amazing feeling training your first winner up at Lark Hill. I mean, no one will ever take that feeling away, that's for sure. My whole family were up there, she's behind me, backing me, and yeah, it was just such a nice feeling. I was over the moon for Meg as well, giving her first winner this season. She deserves it just as much as what the horse does, to be honest. So yeah, it was amazing. It might have been a wet and windy day, but it certainly didn't dampen spirits at all. Like it was like a dream come true training your first winner at Lark Hill. So yeah, hopefully he'll carry on now.
Just very quickly, touched on the hunter chases before we move on. There was two today on the card at Leicester. The Jumping for Fun boys and girls continue to smash it in that department, which is really great. I saw Gordon interviewed on Racing TV today, so that was good. Looking sharp, wasn't he, Sam?
He was, yeah. He looked great. Yeah, he looked fantastic.
What a boy. The first was won by Benny's King, who I believe is going straight to Aintree.
Yeah, he's going straight to Aintree now. With Sean O'Connor's going to keep the ride who rode him today. So as we said, your horses like Benny's King's come back from under rules. He was a high class horse enough for under rules, to be honest. He ran well in the Foxhunters last year. He's going to give Sean a spin round. Sean hasn't had that much experience, to be honest. And to have a horse like Benny to give him a spin round the Aintree Foxhunters is every kid's dream. So no, fair play to him. He won easily today. Well, he's been knocking on the door this season. So yeah, he's going to go straight there. So that'll be good.
And speaking of easy winners,
sorry, can I butt in? Just going back,
yes.
Sean actually did work for us.
Oh, really?
And he came here with a horse. We gave him his first ever winner. Unfortunately, the poor lad then broke a leg. And that was sort of in the March time. He'd had about half a dozen rides, great enthusiasm. He was quite fragile. I think it was the second time he had done it. And he then went back home and had to rebuild himself. And it's great to see that he's come back into the sport. He wasn't riding the class of horse of Benny's King with us, but he gave the horse a great ride today. I thought it was very interesting because he got a nice lead and got quite a soft lead, and it didn't seem to worry him. But I was seriously impressed with the horse today. Once he went bypass the final ditch, how he accelerated up the hill. But also, I don't know whether you wanted the talking point, is the second horse qualified or not?
Wow.
Yeah. I was trying to tell Ben this earlier. Come on, Alan must have a thought on this.
So he's in the entries. He's in the entries for the Cheltenham Foxhunters. He is in the entries, but whether he's qualified or not, I could not tell you at this point.
They've just got that one word there, before, and it's now going to be interesting before the 27th of February, how they interpret it. They've accepted the entry, but now will he be qualified?
Yeah.
I'm amazed he finished. I'm amazed he finished second. He came from nowhere.
He did, yeah. He was off. He's been no so long a long way.
Yeah,
looked like a Tom's qualifier. Our Foxhunters round.
You never know.
The less said, the better. Yeah, and then talking of easy winners, Iskandar Pekos won the second Foxhunter Hunter Chase on the card. Looks a really progressive horse, to be fair, for Hannah Roach. I think the second and third horse are both good animals, and did it quite nicely in the end. So yeah, it's a fair play. No comment from the panel. So speaking finally about the entries for the Foxhunters, actually 11 of the 19 entries are English this time. So that's interesting. It'll probably still be won by Ireland, but we can live in hope. No, I do think it's on the line. It's going to be hard to beat, but I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see one of the Brits do it for us. What would be your fancy in the race, Alan?
I haven't actually looked at the entries in full. I see that we have a very small entry overall, which is disappointing. What would I love to see? I would love to see Bradley Gibbs win it. I'd love to see that we could keep it this side. Keep it this side of the sea. He had a nice hat round at up at Brocklesby, again another horse, and did everything that he. People said, "Oh, why is he running him?" I said, "Well, he could keep him at home and gallop him." But I felt that horse had a lovely day out, gave him a good blowout. I parked next to Bradley on Sunday at Larkhill chatting, and he just said the horse has come out of it happy, fresh, and is in great order. So at the moment, my backing would be for him to try and keep it this side of the water. I just don't like seeing all those Irish handicappers, and I think we're up against it.
Definitely. It's actually the only anti-post bet I've had so far, Sam, Cheltenham. Premier Magic.
Premier Magic, yeah. They were perfect kind of prep race, really, for an 11-year-old, get his confidence up, after he had a hard enough race. It was Sheriff Hutton, I think. He won nicely, but it was a bit of a slog. But no, get his confidence up. And Brad's a great bloke, isn't he? You must have had a bit of fun, Alan, parked next to him at the weekend.
Yeah, he was there in his new lorry.
Oh, was he? Fair enough.
He's got a great big 6 or 8 horse lorry now, which we were talking about mainly. I think it was very wise to do what he did as well, because the horse had a very hard race at the Cheltenham evening meeting, didn't he? After, and just to psychologically go and get that horse to go and have a nice hack round. I thought he rode him very sensibly. Just mentally, we'll get the horse there in good order. I thought it was a very sensible thing to do.
It was interesting to me that the quicker they allowed the horse to go, the better it jumped. Got in tight to quite a few, and he was just in a hat canter. And I thought, oh goodness, this isn't jumping very well for a 10-1 on shot. And you just wondered whether it might tip up. But faster he went, of course, like hacking round at that speed. It was a 7-minute 10 race, and at championship pace, which as the horse got quicker and quicker as he went, just got better and better jumping. And you thought, all right, thank goodness for that. So. Interesting. So let's move on and talk about your specialist subject, Alan Hill. So we won't do the full bio, because most people listening to this pod, it's niche enough that most people will know your inside leg measurement, which I'm told is 65. So we wanted to start with this season. Seems to be going pretty well.
We're very happy. I don't know what went wrong last year. We could never really put our finger on it. And, I probably felt most of last season like probably Nicky Henderson feels tonight after what happened at Kempton today. Confused and down, and just not really reasoning with why. And whoever we had riding the horses, which most of the time it was Izzy, who's great on feedback. She's very, very intelligent and really thinks things out. And she said, I'm coming to the point of the race where normally we pick up, we get competitive, and it just wasn't happening. And don't take me wrong, we had lots of seconds and thirds and fourths, great, but we were just not quite getting there. We have changed a few things minorly this year, both out on the work field as well as in the stable. I don't think any of those have made a massive change, but in saying that, horses are running better. They do look better as well. They're just looking just better in their coats. So at the moment, yeah, we, the yard, are in a lot happier place. We were just confused. And then suddenly you go and have a couple run well, and you think, right, that's it, we're away again. No. And then it's almost.
I always think when you're betting under rules, when a yard has a couple, when a yard's in really bad form and then a couple win, they always go in my notebooks. I think, well, if they can run despite of the yard's bad form, then they must be a smart one, if you know what I mean. But like you say, if you're in it, you must be thinking, oh, great, we're back on. But yeah, no, interesting. And presumably in a sport where marginal gains count, so you're going to be a bit secretive and not tell us what you changed, or are you willing to let slip?
No, I was very lucky. I rode for some very clever people, and I also love talking to other trainers. And I remember once I went to stay one weekend with James Tudor, and we went out for rather a good Saturday night, and Evan Williams was there. And Evan said, and he's a very clever man, he said, we can all train horses, but it's finding the way that will work for you and then using that way, he said. And, it doesn't matter if you've got, as Martin Pipe said, what a person once said to him, oh, I've only got to gallop a furlong long. And he said, well, how far do you want to gallop? And they said, well, I like to gallop 2 miles. He said, we'll go up at 16 times then. You can find ways of doing it. We just checked, we've put a deep sand in, and we really like it. It's quite interesting. A lot more people are putting in. Caroline Robinson's put one in, and she rang me through the summer to talk about it. But we've just changed how we use that a little bit. I think we may have just been overusing it a little bit, but we have changed it. We have changed the feeding, I will say. We're still with Redmills, not a lot, things like that. And just things like that. There's not major things, but we tinkered about. We sat down in the summer and talked it through. What can we do? But nothing major, but just things that we felt maybe we ought to look at. Having said that, though, I am brilliant. I can train other people's horses even better than my own. So when you look at their horses thinking, I can't do that. James King, who son Joe and James talk just about every day. James loves winding Joe up. He does love winding up.
He loves winding everyone up, I'm pretty sure.
True, very true. And he just said, you're running that horse over the wrong trip. And I'm sure it's a wind up. But actually, I've sat and thought about it. I thought, actually, maybe he is right. But again, he's training someone else's horse.
Yeah, great.
And we all, you two sit every week and watch all the points, and you think, oh, why have they run that in that race? It's fascinating. So that's what we did. We looked at it and we said, right, we're Mr. Smith that lives down the road. What is going wrong at the Hill Yard with the pointers? And that's what we tried to uncover. So we have changed. You can't, I don't know, but none of us sit still anyway, do we? Name a yard that somewhere is doing something slightly different the next year. Put in something in, whether it by different schooling fences or whatever. But we're all looking at trying to find the odd bit, aren't we? This last week, we've been down to Lambourne twice to use the bowl. And taking some of the babies down there. And I stood there looking across at Nicky Henderson's yard. I don't know if you two have ever been there. You stand up above the bowl watching it, and then on the right-hand side, and that is just a dream for. And I just looked at that place and I thought, God, you know, there we are doing what we're doing, and we're very lucky with the facilities we've got. But I just thought, what a gorgeous place to be. So, you know, we're all striving to look for that thing that's new and will help, aren't we?
Definitely. You know, look at that today. Even things can go wrong when you're there.
Yeah. And, you know, well, being very honest, the one thing that's hitting us really this season is, what is Max doing? What is he doing? Because his horses, every time I see him, I go and rub his sleeve and I say, will it rub off, Max? And that man has got his horses on fire.
Yeah. It's
he's got
it's interesting.
As well, by the sounds of it. So, but one's
Yeah,
from America right here. Is that right? Wagner's going off to America right here. Is that right? I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I read that. Yeah. Maryland Hunt Cup.
Maryland Hunt Cup. Yeah. So that lorry will be exhausted by the time it's got back from America.
Yeah.
So Alan, you know, people say things like, "Oh, Venetia's fly when the mud's flying," etc. Do you think that maybe there's some correlation between you moving on to deep sand gallop and the attritional ground that we've been having this year, or not? Just coincidence?
I think it's got to help a bit. It gets a horse used to it. It's quite interesting. We use deep sand. We have grass. We love using the grass, especially with the babies. And it's not all uphill. It's a bit down and up, and there's twists and bends. And then we go away to a carpet gallop, so they just ride a bit faster. You know, as James Delahook told me, he was a very clever man when I rode for him. He said, you can canter your horses to get them fit, but do you want to make them slow? He said, you've got to go and put some speed into them occasionally. So, you know, the carpet certainly is a brilliant gallop for doing that. But I think the deep sand does help a horse get sample this ground that we are sampling at the moment, without finding it so much of a struggle.
It kind of
interesting.
Get a fit without realizing, don't they? They can get a deeper fit without really busting their gut.
Yeah, but the other thing is about a deep sand is also that your jockeys, you know, being very honest about it, can't get it too wrong. They get in a rhythm. You know what I mean? It is an easier thing to have horses training on, because your jockeys are there doing it's set. They don't get run away with. They can't get it too wrong, so the horse gets into a nice level rhythm and a good routine.
Absolutely agree, Alan. And let's face it, that's the only reason that Sam's got a job at Dan Skelton's yard. Can't get it too wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's keep moving on. What do you think? And this is quite a big question, so feel free to take a minute to think about it. Steph can always edit it out. What do you think should be the priorities for the new CEO of the PPA when he or her take over?
Has your application been received by Peter?
Right. Let's answer that one then. I've been very privileged at the moment. I've seen the applicants, and I will say we have a Zoom meeting next week to discuss them. And I've been reading through pages of them, and I am very impressed with the applicants we've had, both in number and quality. So that's
great news.
That's number one. That's pleasing. That there is a nice choice for the board to look at. What do I think their priorities? Right. And I was on the interviewing committee of when Peter Wright became chief exec. He walked into a job that straight away had equine flu, and we thought, poor bloke, only just got into the job, equine flu. Well, that was nothing, was it, to what we then sampled afterwards with COVID. And I should think if Peter writes his memoirs in years to come through the whole of his life, I should think the time that he's been chief executive of Point to Pointing will be the major part of his book, because he's had a lot on his plate, and he's handled it very, very well. And we in Point to Pointing owe him a lot for keeping our sport together, because if we'd have been ripped to bits in those 2 years of COVID with no sport, I feel that we would have struggled to probably have ever got ourselves back together. And I did have a good chat with Jerry Hill one day, one-to-one, and I said, how come, Jerry, that we were able to continue? And he said Peter was very quick to get his foot in the door and submit a plan. And he said his plan was brilliant, and it helped us. So whoever takes over next season has got a very hard act to follow. What should we have as their priorities? Well, their priorities has got to be, they've got to do the best for the sport. That's a dead easy thing to say, but what do we need for the sport? Well, there's everything from, do we need more prize money? We've talked about hunt certificates. Do we need more horses? There's all those things straight away that you can put on the table that we must be looked at. We as board members get the hunter certificates registered every Monday from Peter. The numbers are holding up well. We're up more runners by this day last year. We're up by over 100 runners that we were last year, though we've lost these meetings. So I had a little bit of a chat with Martin Harrison today, because Martin sort of is a bit worried. I said, look, Martin, you try and go and win a point to point at the moment. We've been talking about that tonight. We've thrown some very good names up with some very impressive horses. It is difficult to go in. We may be down in horse numbers, we may be down in meetings, but the sport itself is very good. So what is the priority? Somehow I feel it would be very, very nice if we could go and get our horse numbers back up, and it would be helpful if we can definitely keep the number of meetings that we've got, if not increase it. I've just watched this evening for an hour the Nick Luck show with Harry Cobden, and Harry was saying, very interestingly, here we are with jump racing 7 days a week. In Ireland, they're 4 days a week. So the professional jockeys do a lot more schooling. They're in the yard more. They get to know the horses more. And I think that's what's good about point to pointing, because we have Saturday, Sunday. Our jockeys are a lot more help to us. Though Izzy Marshall has her job at the RCA, she comes here and rides out 2 or 3 days a week. She gets to know the horses. James King is never out of his car or off his phone and everything. So point to pointing is very good like that. I'm slightly going off the track. I think that we've got a very difficult decision to make, probably equally as difficult as a Liverpool fan of who's going to replace Klopp. We need a good person. Both of them are going to be very hard to replace. But I am pleased to see the applicants we've had, and I think we're going to have a lot of discussion in the next couple of weeks about it. But that's the main points. We've got to keep the sport in healthy as we can. I feel we're in a healthy way at the moment with what we are producing. Maybe it's a bit smaller, but it's in good order. As regards, I think the riding has so improved. I think what's going on there with Charlie Post coming and looking at these young jockeys. We have a clinic here, and he comes down, and this year we had about a dozen jockeys here. Everything that is coming forward, and these are all things that have been brought in, innovations, haven't they? And it's all good, and the horses all look well. I'm personally very proud of what we are showing the people that turn up to a point to point, that we can do it well, and we are doing it well. And the next chief executive has got a hard pair of shoes to fill, and hopefully we will be able to find someone that can fill them well.
Well, it's very good to hear that you've had some good applicants, and it's really pleasing to hear that you've got a hard decision to make. I thought it might be a default to the one applicant, so that's fantastic news. And listening to all the good things you've got to say about pointing there, Alan, you made me feel quite buoyant about the sport. So, how do you feel about the future of pointing? And in your position, it'd be really interesting to get your take on the connection, the strong connection into the future between pointing and hunting, especially with the expected pressure that's coming down the tracks from the Labour government.
Yeah, there was not a very positive article in the Telegraph last week, was there, that Labour are going to look at this straight away. I would hope that they would have many other problems above that to look at. Our health service, our roads, our schools, to me, are a higher priority than worrying about that. But there again, I'm not a politician. That's just a personal feeling. We've got to stick together. Ben, having been a master, that when you run a point-to-point, the help we get from the love of the sport, both sports, don't take me wrong, but the love of the sport, those people turn out and help, and we wouldn't survive without all of that help. And at the moment, I think it is more than ever that we've got to make sure that we stick together. And if it doesn't, and if we do have what Labour would be wanting to have, it's going to hit the sport hard. If you had to suddenly go and start paying these people, can we afford to do it? We all know that would put a massive strain on it. So it is a very, very vital time that we keep the sports together more than ever.
Yeah, no. I actually randomly
really positive, really that was really strong. So that was roundabouts, wasn't it?
So I was sat outside a nightclub the other evening, close to midnight, talking to Will Biddick on the phone, who had just played Skittles, having won a hunter chase or something ridiculous like that. And I had the calculator out on the phone, and not a giant calculator. I don't carry one of them, Sam. And we worked out that it would cost about £4,500 to pay the staff that volunteer on the day, let alone setting the thing up. And we all know that probably takes a lot longer than it does to run the job on the day. So I think if you paid everyone the hours that are done in volunteering, I think you're pushing 10 grand. And most point-to-point don't make 10 grand. So that is the challenge, isn't it? If you take those people away because hunting falls away and the connection is lost, it's just how you bridge that gap. And of course, that's looking at it in a very sort of arbitrary and quite sort of mercenary way. But there's a much deeper connection, and of course, a lot of those people would still be heavily involved and love both sports. But on the face of it, it is a huge challenge. So you are, as I thought you would be, Alan, very strong on the fact that we need to stick together.
And I'll just go back to positive points as well, about being how it's nice to hear someone so positive about what we've got in pointing, isn't it? You hear a lot of people moaning about the sport. It's been, I think it's been a great season so far, from what I've seen anyway, and the race has been competitive. And we need to all kind of promote the sport in a positive way, don't we?
Well, I'm very lucky, and I will say I am very lucky. The last 7 or 8 years, I've been to the horse riders lunch up in London just before Christmas, and I went again this year, and I got to know Tom Kerr very well, the editor of the Racing Post. So I had a very good lunch, and Tom and I go back a long way, 10 or a dozen years. So I went up to Tom, we chatted away, and I said, right, Tom, we need you to give us more, I use the word airtime. I said, we really do. Come on. And I said, it's great that Carl does his bit on Friday, but can we get a bit more? And he said, right, then sell it to me. So I said to him, right, an Urgemine, a Hoy Seigneur, Sean Bowen. He said, yeah, what? I said, all 3 of those have just come out point-to-pointing in recent years. And I said, so come on, give your readers the heads up what we've got that you are going to see on the track later on. And we talked away about it, and actually he is giving Carl a bit more now space, and he's, as they call it, he's taken a lot of it away out of behind the paywall, and the Racing Post are now doing a bit. And I don't know if you read that article in the back of the Racing Post last week by I can't remember the name, but Palmer. What was his name? Palmer. About he went to Melbourne St Andrew. I don't know if you read that article. It was
brilliant. Yeah, really good.
And things like that. So, you know, it is helping, but you know, we do need even more out of the Racing Post because it is our flagship racing paper. But he understands that with it, and he's listening, and you know, may it continue, and hopefully we will get more out of it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk, Sam. We're edging over an hour at this point. Let's talk about the racing coming up in the next few weeks. Alan, we're going to have to get you back on towards the end of the season, if not next. We talked to you all night about all these various issues. Very, very interesting stuff. So coming up in the next few weeks, Buckfastleigh did Martin and Buckfastleigh did Martin and Brayfield on Saturday. I believe Buckfastleigh's been cancelled, Sam, has it not?
Yeah,
yes,
so
it has.
That's rearranged for the 10th, which is good. So hopefully they'll be able to get that on.
Sam has a day off, does 1 week of prep and takes over the notes, and they're strewn with errors.
Don't put that on me. That's nothing to do with me because I've put it's rearranged for the 10th. I can see that my end. It obviously hasn't saved your end, mate.
I see. Dog ate your homework today. And so, and then Charlton, Hawthorn, Hampton and Charm Park on Sunday. Are you taking anything to war at the weekend, Alan?
Yes, I've made entries. I've got one entry at Did Martin, a horse called Learnt a Lot, who I have every year a milk bottle horse. He was my milk bottle horse. He won first time out. Then he got beat at Chasley by Happy Victory of Dales. And the third horse is the horse I still can't pronounce that won the Hunter Chase today. And then he went to Weybridge and he just never acted around there. So I've got him in there because I want to run him a more open course. I've made entries at Brayfield. I've got Cooler Park in a conditions race. I've got Learnt a Lot in there, but I'm not certain that will suit him. I've got a little mare that has had a wind up, and then Joe has made an entry. He's got one of his projects in the bumper, a store horse he wants to run, and then Sunday we're in at Hampton. I'm going to take a couple of horses there. I want to run in the restricted, a mare called Serenisa that we've had a win from last year, and she kept it in place. And then we may run a novice rider's horse. So got a few to run this weekend. I think that we're just now getting to the time of the season where the early yards and the yards that come into the season a bit later are starting to cross over. And I find this next 3 or 4 weeks is a time of season we don't push quite so hard because the racing does get very hot for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I find.
Yeah, I can believe it. And I'm going to put you on the spot twice in a row here, Alan. Would you give our listeners a winner for the weekend?
If I had to give a winner, if he runs, I'd back Learnt a Lot. He bit me yesterday. He's in great form. I think I made a very, very bad mistake of running him at Weybridge. He just did not handle the course. I thought he'd love the course. And if I was going to put a bet on, if he runs this weekend, I think he'll take a bit of beating. He's back. We freshened him right up. He's a chestnut horse. Typical chestnut horses, I always think they want to be a little bit fresher, and he worked okay this morning, which is good. If he works okay, that's good. So yeah, Learnt a Lot.
Great. And my second, putting you on the spot, you just said before that Joe's entered the horse. So that's 3 members of your immediate family that are training under their own names. If it became possible for point-to-point trainers to have a joint license, would it be Joe and Alan Hill?
No, it'd be Joe Hill.
Okay.
It's an interesting one. I don't think there is a joint keeper's name yet, is there?
No, you're not allowed. No, it's just something we've been mulling recently.
Yeah, no, he likes to have one or two of the, as I said earlier on, the stores or the horses that may go to the sales. He likes to, get involved in that way, and that's why this is his project. Joint license probably could do that in time if ever it was allowed. But I think the time that comes in, I'd be very happy for him to have the day-to-day responsibilities.
Very diplomatic answer. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Alan, for your time. Is there anything that anyone else wants to cap off on before we finish, or should we call it a day?
Carl, quick question on schooling races and Alan's opinions on that, and then I'll call it a day. Well, we've got Alan.
Will you drop the schooling races, Sam? I'm joking. Yeah, Alan, shoot. What do you think? Very good idea.
You've got the veterinary cover and the medical staff there on the day, so that is got to be a major help. I think it's very good that there's no betting on them, because it just lets people get on and do the best for the horse. I think that I'm not certain, as an unofficial clerk of the course, that I'd always want to have 2 schooling races after every meeting on Kingston Blount, because obviously it is a lot more work putting it back. But as a keeper, I think they're a very, very good idea. Full marks for Jim Colotti and Garthorpe last year for starting the idea. And hopefully it will expand. It can't do anything but good. We see on these schooling days the following day, the great support they get. So to do it as a bigger bunch on the day with all that cover, full marks. And I haven't yet got involved myself, but I strongly would back them if they happened locally to me at a time of year that would suit.
Yeah, I'm actually in discussion with Mike Etherington Smith, who you probably know well, Alan. He's actually pushing for it as well. So we've got the right people on board. So hopefully, if we can get together and support it, it's something that in the right areas, I think at the right tracks, I think it's something that will work well.
Yeah, I know Chipley Park all but have schooling races the next day, and people. I know last year Mark Hill turned up the next day purposely to watch 1 or 2 horses. There's a lot to be learned from them, not only by the keepers, but the jockeys, the horses, but the spectators enjoy it as well. So no, it's good. It's good. You've got a brilliant facility. Especially these once-a-year courses. They've got a long time to recover. Let's use them more as well.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, we've covered a wide range of topics. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks, Alan. You've been very generous with your time, and we'll hopefully get you back on later in the season. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Been good fun.
Thanks, Alan.
Good stuff. Sam, it's been a pleasure as always, and I'll see you at the weekend. Sam's coming hunting with me, everyone, and he's coming to the Hunt Ball as my hot date. You heard it here first. So
here we go.
I fully intend to have him on the floor before the night starts. Anyway, on that bombshell, we'll end that there. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
You're listening to Pointing Pointers, the Point to Point podcast.